process here, but this is an important step in the process, one that we absolutely welcome.
Let's bring on our panel, syndicated columnist George Will, Charles Lane, opinion writer for The Washington Post, and syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer. George, I got to start with you. Maliki is still the prime minister as of right now. Is the president supporting, dare I say it, regime change?
Here, there, and everywhere. Yes, we've done regime change in Afghanistan, we've done it in Iraq, we've done it in Libya, and now we're doing it in Iraq again. And I'm not sure that they're listening to him, because it's not clear how far the Maliki government's writ runs. We're having instead a great test of air power on behalf of Kurds who would like to get away as far away as possible from the Maliki government. And it's a great test now. It's a reprise of the Balkans, where we decided we'll see what air power can do. It was, to be blunt, it was a war in which we deemed it was worth killing for, but not worth dying for, so we did what we did at 15,000 feet. And the president who said he will not be the Shiite Air Force is the Kurds Air Force. And that's probably a good thing. They've been good to us, and it's time for us to be good to them. But as Dianne Feinstein said recently, it takes an army to defeat an army, and we are opposing an army.
Charles, what about the optics of all this? I thought it was interesting that the president, he had a beach day. Everyone's entitled to vacation. I'm not going to pick on him over that, but he had a fundraiser tonight. You remember a few weeks ago he said, we're not worried about photo ops and whatnot. But in between the beach day and the fundraiser, they brought the president out in order to speak to the nation, because there's some pretty big developments. They realize, don't they, that they've got to stay on top of this situation even when he's on Martha's Vineyard.
Yes, both in reality and in appearance. I think they have been pushing so hard to get Maliki out that when there was some sign that he might be on his way out, that there was a process in train, that the president had to say something about it. It is remarkable how hard they are shoving Maliki, to the point where, as the president even told Tom Friedman, he had hesitated to strike ISIS from the air earlier because ISIS was actually useful as pressure against Maliki. Think about that for a minute. That's how kind of paradoxical this thing can get. In other words, for a while there, we were letting ISIS run wild because it was useful to get rid of this guy who actually, I think, had been installed with American help before. So it will be perhaps the opportunity now for this new guy to set up the inclusive government we all hope for. And at that point, the president will be sort of more able, I guess he's saying, to strike at ISIS.
Glad you mentioned the interview with Tom Friedman, because I want to talk to Charles about what the president told Tom Friedman of the New York Times about Libya.
I think we underestimated, our European partners underestimated the need to come in full force. If you're going to do this, then it's the day after Gaddafi's gone, when everybody's feeling good and everybody's holding up posters saying, "Thank you, America." At that moment, there has to be a much more aggressive effort to rebuild societies that didn't have any civic traditions. So that's a lesson that I now apply every time I ask the question, should we intervene militarily? Do we have an answer the day after?
Charles, is there an answer this time?
Look, if the lesson he learned from Libya, which you would think we would have learned a lot earlier, but it took him a while, is that if you do something, you do it seriously, then why in God's name is he being half serious in Kurdistan? I mean, this is a 600-mile front. It's longer than from Boston to Washington. We have knocked out 2 dozen trucks and artillery pieces. Our own Pentagon has said this is not going to stop the momentum of ISIS. Yes, it's helped the Kurdish infantry from in recapturing a couple of cities, largely as a psychological boost. But why are we not supplying heavy arms that the Kurds need? We're giving them through the CIA small arms and bullets. That's nice. The problem is the bullets are bouncing off the armored vehicles that ISIS had that it captured from us. The reason that we are not doing it the right way through the Pentagon with lots of weapons is because we think they will be impolite or against some kind of law, some legalism, because it's not an independent state. Who cares about the legalism? We're in the middle of a shooting war, and the worst people on earth are winning it right now.
George, I looked it up. You wrote a column on June 16th about Libya, and you said humanitarian imperialism became regime change there, but, quote, made no provision for a replacement regime. Iraq now, we have a prime minister designate, and Chuck a moment ago said we got this new guy. I have to admit, I'd call him a new guy too, because I hardly know his name. The president could hardly pronounce his name. Did we really learn anything from Libya? Is this new?
We've learned nothing, because what the president said to Tom Friedman was, my great regret is not that we should have not done this optional regime change. It was really a 7-month assassination attempt against Gaddafi using fighter bombers. We finally succeeded and decapitated the country and then left. The president doesn't say, as he should say, this was the most frivolous use of American power since the Bay of Pigs, and I apologize. Instead, he says, if only we'd got engaged in nation building. This after 10 years in Iraq and 13 years in Afghanistan. He wants more of the satisfactions and excitements of nation building in Libya. That's his regret.
Chuck, listen to what Lieutenant General William Mayville today. He was at the Pentagon briefing reporters. He's head of operations for the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Here's what he said about ISIS.
We assess that U.S. airstrikes in northern Iraq have slowed ISIL's operational tempo and temporarily disrupted their advances toward the province of Erbil. However, these strikes are unlikely to affect ISIL's overall capabilities or its operations in other areas of Iraq and Syria.
It seems to me the president has to get some credit for potentially preventing a genocide, the humanitarian aspect of this, between the airstrikes and sending relief. But when you have the Pentagon itself on camera saying this is unlikely to stop ISIS at this point, what does that tell us?
Well, it tells us that actually, though we haven't supplied the Kurds, we supplied ISIL in the sense that we had supplied the Iraqi army with all this sophisticated, heavy U.S.-made weaponry, which ISIL then stole when the Iraqi army ran away. They have, in addition to apparently a very high quality of combat force, pretty sophisticated tactics, they've got the best equipment in the field. And I think this general's view of the matter is quite accurate, and that it won't change, that a few airstrikes, yes, can stop them from overrunning Erbil, but it won't change on the ground until there's somebody with the same level of sophistication, leadership, and firepower facing
Charles,
them.
30 seconds. Is there a strategy to stop ISIS?
Apparently Obama has none. Don't do stupid stuff, apparently, is what he believes in. It is stupid to do this half-heartedly. Masroor Barzani, who's the head of intelligence and security in Kurdistan, commenting on the U.S. aid, he thanked the U.S. for its aid, but said it's too little and too late. As usual with Obama, he said if we had done this earlier, it wasn't a mystery. ISIL, it took Fallujah, it took Anbar, then it took Mosul, it marches south into Baghdad, and we ignore all that. And he said, had we done this a few months earlier, we wouldn't have the threat of genocide. They wouldn't be in Kurdistan. But if we're going to do it now, we have to do it seriously through the Pentagon and openly supply the Kurds.
15 seconds, George.
One of Napoleon's famous pithy aphorisms was, if you start to take Vienna, which is to say, tentativeness in military matters is ruinous.
Put well and quickly. Don't do stupid stuff. This philosophy on foreign policy. Well, Hillary Clinton next up. Not so thrilled with how the president